at my favorite park this morning. When I find a spot, I'll start to share with you how I met Walter. Super windy down here today. So I'm sitting on some rocks. See what's behind me? And I found a really serene place to tell you the rest of the story of how I met Walter. I don't know if I can stay on this rock. It's not very comfortable. But it's quieter and it's away from the wind. And so what happened was when I went down to the U.S., there's a part one story of how I met Walter that led up to my position and my job and how I ended up working in the U.S. and opening up a book distribution business. And so I went down to Portland. I chose Portland to run Portland. I went down and my daughter came with me and her boyfriend came down to help me be the warehouse person. So we went down and we found a townhouse to live in, and I brought a couple other people from Vancouver to work with me. So we had a townhouse full of salespeople, and my daughter and her boyfriend and me. And we got a warehouse and we got an office and we got a hotel room to hire people. And we hired a bunch of people. And Walter, my beloved, was one of those people. Now, Walter was very quiet. He's a very reserved person. And they would literally come in the morning and pick up their cookbooks and load up their van and their car, whatever they had, and head off to their territory that we gave them. And they would put out the books, as I explained in part one of this, how that worked. Well, Walter, you hardly knew he was there. He'd come in and pick up his books. Peter, my daughter Debbie's boyfriend at the time, would distribute the books out of the warehouse, and they would load up their vans and they would go wherever their territory was to distribute them to offices or any place that people worked. Well, Walter worked for me for about, 3-4 months, and then the company wanted to expand to other areas, so I was asked to choose people or ask who would like to take over other territories. Well, Walter chose Orlando, Florida. And he drove all the way across the U.S. from Portland to Orlando, Florida, within his Volkswagen van, and then they would ship books to him, and he worked down there for a few months. Well, about November, I'm going to say, maybe a little later, could be after Christmas even. No, it was before Christmas. I was asked to go down and help train people that I had sent down to three areas actually: West Palm Beach, Orlando, and Fort Lauderdale. So I went down and I flew between those places, and Orlando was the last place, which is where Walter was. And he had hired a team of people, and I was hired to go down there and help them. They really didn't need help. They were doing just fine. But that's where I got to know Walter, and I liked him from the beginning. So when I came back, I wasn't down there very long. When I came back, I then took over Seattle. I had Portland and Seattle and Vancouver running, and I had to hire somebody to run Seattle. So I asked Walter, I had a motive of my madness, to have Walter come back and run Seattle. Well, he did. And that was about May 1985, I think it was. So he came back to run Seattle, and that's when our relationship started. Now, I chased him, and I kept going back and forth between Vancouver and Seattle, and it was a busy time in my life. I was mid-40s, I suppose, somewhere in there. And or early 40s, I guess. Anyway, I was determined. I had to have this man in my life. He was so lovely and so kind and so considerate. He's a very nice person. And I swear I fell in love with him the first time I met him. And so then, about 19, then he went, I was spend some time down in Seattle, and then he decided he wasn't sure about us yet. He wasn't sure about settling down. And he decided he's going to go back to Denver, go back to school, finish his teaching degree, which he went back to Denver, but he never got around to the teaching. He wasn't there that long. And I came back to Vancouver, and I flew down to Denver a couple of times. And then I finally phoned him and said, I'm done. I can't continue this phone calling and going back and forth. And I was done. So the next day he phoned me, and he said, next day or so, he phoned me and he says, I think I'm coming to Vancouver. I said, oh, you're coming for a visit? And he's, no, I've been thinking about it. And he figured he decided that his life was better with me than without me. So he came to Vancouver, and we got married about a month later. And his son Ken joined us about that time. He was 13, and that was the plan also, that at that age Ken would come to live with his dad. And now it's been 33 years, and happy. He's a lovely man. He's very loving, very kind. He's just a gentle soul. And so I just wanted to share with you how I met Walter. So I hope you enjoyed that story. Have a good day. I'm in a beautiful spot here. I'll turn it around and show you. And I'm sitting on rocks, and it's hard on my butt, but you can see where I am. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Okay, I gotta be really careful in this area because I fell years ago flat on my face and almost smacked my face on one of these rocks that stick up. I was on my phone and I laughed and thought, oh, I hope nobody saw me. I was talking to my brother at the time. Those are the rocks I almost hit my face on, and I was so bruised up. It was horrible, but I didn't hurt myself. Just a few bruises.